Welcome to the Trustbuilder Podcast with Scott and Brad, where we're going to tackle a couple of difficult questions today. And today's question is especially difficult. And so the overall question we're going to be talking about today is trust earned, given, or assumed? This is a tough one, right?
Yeah,
and
I
know you came up with a question for me, and that's what we do on this podcast. We ask each other really difficult questions about trust, and then we dig into it, not because we have all the answers, but we just want to explore these topics that many of us wrestle with, and this is a hard one.
Yep.
Do you give it? Do you earn it? Or is it just assumed? So you want to ask me my question first? You want to go first? You want to ask me?
It doesn't matter.
You go for it. You fire away.
Okay, first question, Scott. This is your question. Does your personality shape how you build or withhold trust?
Oh man, that's a good one. Because a lot of times we think about trust as this like binary thing where it's either I trust you or I don't trust you.
Right.
And a lot of people will think, and I would fall into this category too, of like, I just assume everyone builds trust like I do.
Yeah.
And I think that, oh my gosh, if you like to connect, then I like to connect with people. And so you like to connect with people. I'll tell you a specific story. I was with one of our clients down in Arizona, and he was describing a relationship with one of his vendors. And so this vendor would come to his business and they would deliver supplies for the business. And when the vendor started coming into the business on a regular basis, when he first bought the business, the vendor would come in and try to build trust with him by being friendly and gregarious and how's your family and what is this, and wants to connect personally. And come to find out, this person, the business owner, that's like the opposite of who he was. And so what would normally have created a trust environment by making a personal connection actually created an uncomfortable environment for this person because the person was asking personal questions and wanting to connect. And come to find out that the business owner was not a connection person.
Right.
He was an action and insight person. And so we think about trust at Trustbuilder as a combination of three things: action, insight, and connection. And we can make an assumption, and this vendor did, that everyone's a connection person. And so I think that personality can play a big role in understanding how to build trust with someone and how trust gets broken too. Yeah. We define trust as being there for a person in the ways that matter most to them. And that key portion is the ways that matter most to them versus me. And so I think that personality, as many different people as there are in the world, there's different personalities as well, even though there might be categories. I look at this question and think, does it shape how we build trust? Absolutely. And then it lends itself to the question of, do we take time to get to know each other? Yeah. Do we take time to listen to each other? I just did this webinar. We talked about the levels of listening, and sort of the highest version of listening. The lowest version is not listening at all, of course, but then the highest level of listening is listening with a willingness to be influenced. Yeah. Or right below that, listening for understanding. And I think if we take time to understand each other, sometimes it becomes really clear. Right. Like, hey, from your perspective.
I think this is a loaded question because I also think, obviously I gave you a loaded question because personality is also, it shapes trust. I think trust and personality are intertwined. So I think
what do you mean by that?
I think a lot of times when for example, when we give somebody a trust profile, I think oftentimes we're not real surprised because we see the way that somebody trusts play out and also how they behave in their personality. So there's some real congruency between if someone tends to be more muted or quiet. We oftentimes find they're probably not a connection person. So we see personality nuances connected to the nuances of trust. But then I also think, and that's what's challenging about it, I think personality is oftentimes shaped by experience. And oftentimes our experience will cause us to not trust certain people. So we've had experiences in our past. It's shaped our personality. I don't trust. And so there is this sense of, I think personality is sort of connected, but I also think personality can be an indicator of where somebody lands on a trust profile.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. That's interesting because we do make assumptions. I mean, it's like when you watch a movie and there's a character in the movie named a certain thing and you've had a bad experience or maybe a good experience. And you're like, man, I hate people that are named that.
Yeah, usually, like if I meet someone named Scott, I'm like, oh man, no. But you're exactly right. We have preconceived notions that we meet somebody. And there's things we do, all those sorts of things. I just think personality, man, I think it's so connected to how we trust, how it shapes how we. I mean, the question I asked, if we withhold trust. Yeah. Our personality can definitely impact that.
Oh, heck yeah.
And vice versa. I think trust can impact our personality. It can shape those sorts of things.
So it's also interesting. You can also pick up how people prefer to build trust, and you can understand a bit about their personality by how they communicate. And so if you don't know a person, email is a great one. Of course, we live and die by email right now. And if someone's sending you very short emails, you can probably assume they're probably an action person. If they're sending you very detailed emails with lots of questions and data, they're an insight person.
Yep.
If they send an email that is more expressive, more revealing, or more chatty, they're probably a connection person. So sometimes those little things, not always, these are not always true, but you can look at how people communicate and kind of ascertain this is a bit about their personality, because a lot of times you don't get to know them. Like this vendor coming into the business, what could he have done to understand how this person built trust or broke trust? And I think you can see that, or they reveal it in how people interact.
It's something that I think about. You know, we first started down this journey. I started thinking about this in my own work, you know, and I send a lot of emails. I mean, there's a lot of email correspondence with me. And I started realizing, you know, I'm a connection person. I mean, that's my number one thing. So I realized there are so many times I'm conversing with these people and I'm approaching them from a connected standpoint. And that's my personality. I wasn't taking their personality into consideration. I think personality oftentimes also pushes people into certain roles. You know,
that's true.
There's someone that might be a purchasing agent in a warehouse somewhere. Usually they're not the most gregarious, people-oriented people.
Sure.
I apologize to any of you out there watching this or listening to this.
Fun-loving purchasing agent.
You're a fun-loving purchasing agent. And if you are one, I'd love to meet you, because so far I haven't in my life. But, you know, you think about somebody that's drawn to that. Their personality was drawn to a job where they're maybe fairly isolated. They deal with statistics and numbers, and they're trying to get deals done. They don't care about the relationship. In fact, the relationship might actually get in the way. When I realized some of those things, I was like, oh, that person's personality, they're not oriented the way I am. I shortened up my emails. I got more specific with details. And it was amazing to see. I remember the week that I started doing that, and the amount of, I remember I sent an email to somebody and said, are you going to do this or not? ? Hit send. And I had been like sending emails.
That's super uncomfortable to do if you're a connection person.
Man, I violated everything inside of me.
Yeah.
And after months of this person not getting back to me, suddenly it was like, well, yeah, no, boom, they just opened up. And I think they never got past the first 9 sentences, my flowery opening. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday, Scott. You know, it's all these things. And
here's what I did on Memorial Day weekend, you know.
Yeah. And it was just me stopping to think, what's their personality? So even if you don't have their trust profile in front of you, which most of the time we don't, understanding trust profiles and understanding these things can really be beneficial, I think, in these circumstances. So it's a tough question.
That's a good one. All right. So now let's switch gears, and I get to ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I think that this is, I don't know what you're going to say to this one. I don't know what you're going to say. Should leaders give trust freely, or should they make people earn it? Should they give it freely, or should they make people earn it?
Man, this is a tough question. So right now I'm thinking through, 25 years, 30 years of leadership and what I've done. So I'm defaulting to that. What have I done? And I haven't always done it right, but I think there's a little bit of both. I'm a firm believer in giving people the benefit of the doubt. That's just how I approach life, unless I'm driving. That's the only time I don't give people a benefit of the doubt. At that point, everybody's kind of an idiot. But in life in general, I just like to give people benefit of the doubt. So I personally approach this in saying, trust people until they've given you a reason not to. So I tend to be, as a leader, I think because trust is so critical in an organization, I think it's important as a leader to start with trust, to lead with trust. I think to express that, hey, I trust you. That's why I hired you. That's why you're on this team. I trust you. I think you have to exemplify that. I think in a lot of organizations, leaders in particular, they might say they trust, but their micromanaging behaviors actually undermine the words they're speaking. So I think it's not just saying that you trust, but it's actually modeling trust by letting people rise and fall with whatever they're doing and being able to walk them through that. I think that's how you do that. So I think leaders, I think they have to give it freely. I think they have to give it freely in order to create a trusting environment. I think if you make people earn it, they're going to make people earn it. And pretty soon you have this nitpicky, everybody's looking, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. So there's an old saying, I don't even know who said it. This one's been around a long time. Probably Mark Twain, but someone once said the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. And it's just this idea that leaders are the ones that set the tone. So I think if you want a trusting environment, and we've talked so much about how much trust is important to healthy organizations. If you want a trusting environment, I think you got to give trust freely.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. So I'm thinking back to some of the research around game theory. If you go back to the 30s, 40s, 50s, John von Neumann and John Nash, and how they looked at the interactivity of people in game theory. And so these are two concepts, zero-sum game theory where there's a winner and a loser, and they're battling against each other, right?
Yep.
And then there's cooperative game theory in which you're trying to cooperate. And so they used to do this experiment called Prisoner's Dilemma, in which you would pit two people against each other, and they had a choice to either cooperate or to defect, which is basically I'm going to go out on my own.
Yeah.
And they would have all these people, mathematicians, submit strategy. So their strategy would say, if a person does this, then I will do this, and so on and so forth. And what they found, who won those games, those prisoner dilemma games, over and over and over again, was a strategy called tit for tat. And tit for tat basically says, what you do to me, I will do to you. But what was one of the key factors of who won is they called it initial optimism. And so initial optimism says, I'm going to start out by extending a small bit of trust towards you. And then they would watch and see if a person defected against them, they would defect, and then they would immediately return to cooperation. So what that tells us is the idea of starting out with an initial optimism, a bit of optimism, and then continuing cooperation as long as there's a cooperation back was the strategy that won overall.
Got it.
Now, what's really interesting is we have this graphic that we use called the levels of trust at Trustbuilder.
Yeah.
And right at the middle, naturally, it's neutral, like there is no trust. And right above that is cooperation. And right below neutral is avoidance. And so sometimes when we think of, do we earn it or do we trust people freely? Do we give it? One of the questions is it not just that I trust or don't trust, but it's a gradient. So we start out by extending a small bit of trust, which is what you're pointing to, I think. We start out by extending a small bit of trust. You might not put your life in that person's hands, but you start out with a small bit of trust in the form of cooperation.
Yeah.
And then once you work together long enough and you see there's a track record, it goes from cooperation to preference, working together. And eventually, if you work really, really well together, it might even get to referential trust, which is not only do I like working with you, but I'm willing to tell other people they should work with you too.
Right.
And so there's these gradients of trust. And the same is true of distrust. A small bit of distrust shows up as avoidance.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to be around you.
I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
But I don't totally distrust you completely. But then below avoidance is distrust, and below that is opposition. So we go from avoiding you to actively distrusting you.
To I don't want to work with you.
Yeah,
and I don't want other people to work with you.
Everybody should not work with
Stay away from this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in that case, I think that we initially, like you say, we initially offer optimism, and then we let cooperation drive us to a deeper level of trust versus distrust. And so the strategies in those game theory in those games, the ones that would lose, they would start out with distrust. And whenever they started out with distrust, they lost. They'd with the less points overall.
Oh, that's so good.
And so it's really interesting. If anybody wants to read more about that, there's a book called The Evolution of Cooperation by a guy named Robert Axelrod. And it's a great book, super in-depth, academic-y, but it very much goes into what goes into those situations. So pretty good stuff.
That's really interesting.
Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. So this is these two questions about is trust earned, given, or assumed. Thanks for joining us as we explore these types of questions, and we look forward to seeing you next time.